Do you have a friend who's lost a spouse and you'd like to help her, but you don't really know how? Well, I lost my spouse in 2016, and I'd like to share with you some of the things that really helped me, and then other things not so much. Hi, I'm Sandy from Sandy Over 70. Thanks for watching. Everyone grieves in their own way and for as long as they need to. In my circumstance, which is different from most people, I have no children and my sisters are in their 90s and unable to travel. So when my husband died, I had no family support system. But I found, have friends and people whom I never expected would help me, actually help me a great deal. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that really helped and then other things that were just so-so. Losing a spouse is one of the most devastating experiences of your life, and I can't even tell you what it's like unless you've experienced it. You don't see it coming, and that's probably a good thing, because if you knew what you were going to go through, it would be traumatizing in itself. Let me just say that I received a pile of sympathy cards, and I was grateful for each and every one, but I really couldn't read them. I was so devastated, I couldn't even read the cards. I slit most of them open and peeked inside, or I could see from the return address who they were from, but I couldn't look at them. So I put them in a box. And yesterday, 6.5 years after the death of my husband, I decided it was time to look at them. And I read each and every one. And I was amazed at the people who had sent them, because many of these people are not in my life anymore because of the fact that I've moved away from the city I was living in when my husband died. One of the envelopes had not even been opened, and it was from my nephew, and it was a beautiful note, and it was comforting even now. But maybe that gives you some idea of how traumatic the death of a spouse is. So the cards were one very helpful thing, but I noticed that on a great many cards, it said, call me if you need anything. And I thought, I never called any of those people. I couldn't gather up the energy to call anyone at that time. And although it's a nice thing to say, really, it's not all that helpful, because the person in grief is probably not going to call you. Several things did help me, and I'll talk about them. I think one of the most important was a weekly call from a friend of mine whom I've known since I was 21. We've managed to keep in touch over the years. We only saw each other very infrequently during that lifetime, but we did always send Christmas cards, and that's how we knew where we were living in this country. Somewhere in my grief, she called me up, and we had a nice chat. And I remember that she would call, it seemed like on a regular basis, but I couldn't tell you that she was calling every week, or I couldn't tell you that she was calling every Sunday night. My thoughts were too disordered to even think about that. I knew I looked forward to it very much because we had a lifetime history. The other day I talked to her and I asked her if she had called me every week on Sunday night and if she had planned that, and she said yes. She said she didn't call every week, but that the reason she called on Sunday was that I had told her Sundays were very bad for me. I cannot tell you how helpful those calls were, and this is something you might think about doing. I recently got a call from another friend that I've known for about 25 years. We seldom see each other, but we do keep in touch. And she lives up in New York, and she called me to tell me her husband had died, and I could tell that she was extremely upset. And she said, I had no idea what you were going through when your husband died, and I am so sorry I wasn't there for you because I had no idea. And I know she had no idea. People have no idea. She had no idea what I was going through until she is now experiencing it, and it is horrible. I could tell she was devastated. And I'm not sure she's ever lived alone or for very long. I didn't get married till I was 45, so I have more resources for being alone than she has. And I said to myself, I'm going to pay it forward. My friend called me regularly, and it was very helpful. And I'm going to try and call my New York friend regularly because she needs a friend now. The other things that really helped me were texting. Now, not everybody my age texts, but I do. And my sister, who in her 90s could not even travel to the funeral, told me to text her anytime I wanted to. And we ended up texting almost every night. And we shared our enthusiasm for Hallmark movies. And I must say, Hallmark Christmas movies got me through that first Christmas. And she was watching them too. But we had recorded them, and we were watching various Hallmark movies and commenting on them in our texts. This was a great help to me. I knew she was always available. Because of her age, she wasn't out very much, and she was available to me by texting. I found that extremely comforting. Also, my stepdaughter, who loves to text, she's only 9 years younger than me, was available for texting, and I also found this very helpful, and we're texting to this day. Another helpful person was a male friend of mine who had also lost his wife and was grieving, and we were in the same boat. And our texts were very helpful to both of us because when we were having a really bad day, we could share that and we knew exactly what the other person was feeling. At one point, 5 months after my husband died, I thought I was doing really well. And one day I woke up and a dark cloud was laying over me. I was extremely depressed to the point I couldn't get out of bed or do anything. It was a serious depression, and it was delayed by 5 months, so I was taken aback. I knew I needed to see a therapist, and I did not have one in the small town I was living in, and I could barely get up the energy to research. So my male friend did that for me, found a contact that I was able to use to make an appointment. However, the depression lasted 7 days, and by the time I was able to get the appointment, I was coming out of it. Still, I went twice, and it was helpful. So it's amazing how these things can sneak up on you. Another helpful thing that occurred immediately and was very helpful to me was a series of lunch dates by just about everyone I knew invited me to lunch. And I had lunch dates, 1 or 2 a week, for many months. And because I had no family around me, these lunch dates were incredibly helpful. I also was invited to some events, and initially I could not go. I did not have the energy. I knew I couldn't talk to people. And I would have unexpected bouts of very serious grieving where I would cry, and this is extremely normal. And I didn't want to start crying publicly, so I did decline some of the invitations. People seem to understand, and this is something that you should know. If you're inviting someone and they declined, it's not personal. They just can't gather up the energy or stamina to do it. Do you have any helpful hints for how to help friends who are grieving? Please share them with us in the comments below. And I hope that this has been in some way helpful to you if you have a grieving friend.